Welcome to Tinnacity Talks, where real people share real stories about the best and brightest in mobile field service. I'm your host, Katie Duvall, better known to the industry as Katie from Kentucky. And today we're heading up to New England to talk with a team that defines the word legacy. For over 80 years, W.D. Matthews has been a premier powerhouse for material handling and construction equipment in the Northeast. From their headquarters in Auburn, Maine, across their strategic locations in the region, they've built a massive reputation. They don't just sell world-class brands, they've built a customer-first service philosophy that has stood the test of time for nearly a century. Joining us today to share how they're matching that massive experience with the latest and greatest service tech is General Parts and Service Manager Jim Chaousis. He's the one behind the scenes, making sure their service team has everything they need to stay ahead of the game. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you.
Before Tinnacity, what did day-to-day communication actually look like between your office team and the technicians working in the field across multiple states?
So I'll give you a layered answer to that. So when I started here 10 years ago, we were using multi-part forms, pre-printed, and we would mail those forms in and we would manually enter that into our ERP. But about 7 years ago, we decided that we wanted to get a little bit more tech heavy. So we went to a field service management platform that was kind of an out of the box solution, but it was pay per month, pay per user, like a lot of services are. And it wasn't connected to our ERP. We went through the journey of teaching technicians to use iPads and take pictures, and that did help move things along, but we didn't have a connected to ERP solution. Communication was always clunky. And when I'm trying to describe my job to my peers in the organization, I'm always trying to say it's really hard to plan and schedule an operational environment when I don't really know what's happening today or yesterday or even tomorrow. And I have to take 30 days ago information in order to plan for next month. So it was very hard to communicate and plan. Tinnacity has solved a lot of those problems. I was literally out on the floor today looking at what everybody was currently working on, adjusting their scheduled hours, setting expectations. And that's managing. And I feel like we're finally in 2026 doing some real day-to-day management of technicians.
Yeah, it's amazing how much noise disappears when you have a single source of truth and live data at your fingertips, right?
That's right.
In a family-owned business with long-tenured employees, so much tribal knowledge is stuck in people's heads. How has moving to Tinnacity helped you capture that expertise and make it accessible to newer technicians?
It's a great question. And it is a blessing and a curse sometimes in a family-run business that you have these experts at what they know, and the challenge is how do you teach other people that are coming in? And that hasn't been a problem for a long time at Matthews because we would get a new technician once or twice a year, and it's easy to assimilate one person at a time. Probably anybody that's watching a podcast about field service management platforms knows that that's not the same anymore. That now we're in the industry of teaching great young mechanics on how to get integrated into this. So we get, a dozen new guys every year, and that's harder. So Tinnacity does help our senior technicians be able to illustrate to our junior technicians the work they performed in the past and the work that they're currently working on. One of the things that I was surprised at 10 years ago when I got into this industry was I was a mechanic a long time ago, and so I can relate to these guys. And I was like, so you go to a customer that you may not have met before to work on a truck that you may not have seen before, may or may not have a manual, and you may or may not know what has happened to the truck in the past. How do you fix it? And so I think now in this current atmosphere, a technician can go and they scan the QR code and they are immediately on the piece of equipment and they can see setup of the truck. They can see the work history on that truck. They can see notes about the customer and, call this guy and here's your check-in and check-out procedure. And it really does give the technician a fighting chance of being able to have that coveted first-time fix. So I think that we have given the technicians a very important tool. Again, it still has to be used correctly. And I think that we've been on Tinnacity for 2 years and we get better every single day.
Protecting that legacy Like turning from what Bob knows to what the system knows really helps future-proof the whole company for that next generation of techs.
And because they can all see each other's work, it brings everybody up. I have 40-year technicians. They're not the greatest ones at writing their narrative because they have not been doing that for 40 years. So sometimes the new guy is a lot better at the documentation. The senior guy sees that and he raises his level as well. It does raise all ships there. Everybody gets better because they can see what good and bad is.
You guys carry a massive range of brands, Toyota, Bobcat, Clark, and a ton of others. But how has Tinnacity changed the way your technicians verify part availability while they're still on site with a customer?
Right. That is a big deal. We've been doing this for a really long time. Before we had all this tech in our hands, the right way to find a part was to get on the phone and call a parts associate back here so that they could look it up. That's clunky. It's really hard. And now literally the telephone game and, you get a 1 digit off and you're completely on something, the wrong truck, the wrong part. And then we ship that out. We use the Tinnacity parts request for all parts fulfillments. So we have documentation, and it really is so easy for a technician to do a parts request. And now you have the work order, make, model, serial number, the documentation. And that is what is connecting the parts associate with the service tech. But we don't only just do that in the field. That is how technicians request their parts in the shop. And then when we do quoted jobs, the dispatcher is actually doing a parts request. Everybody that's familiar with that job, from the frontline field technician to the parts associate to the service manager, can see the daisy chain of information. Then that gives us a lot of information to be able to make inventory adjustments to the technician. And we've seen our first time fix rate actually go up substantially in the couple of years that we've been on Tinnacity because we just have the right part. We have the right information.
Yeah, it gives them the confidence almost to own that customer interaction from start to finish instead of having to make that extra call or go back to the shop themselves to check inventory.
That's right.
In the equipment world, a down machine means lost money. How much faster is your quoting process now that your techs can capture needs and parts in the field versus the old manual handoff?
Another good question. I'm not sure because, like you said earlier, we service a lot of lines: Toyota, Bobcat, Clark, Manitou, Genie, JLG, Lift King. I mean, we'll sell anything they allow us to sell. That's how you service customers in northern New England, is you make sure there's lots of options. We're utilizing the quote feature within Tinnacity. Not only are we using it from the technician perspective where they can write down their quote and marry that information to the CSS and the service writer, all of the information is coming in through one channel, which allows us to be able to manage that a little bit better. Put the right expert on the quoting process. When you deal with so many lines, there's a Toyota expert, and there's a Bobcat expert, and there's a off-brand expert, and we can assign those quotes to the appropriate person. It is in times of demand that we slow down, but having all the information in one place allows us to make managerial decisions about it.
Yeah, sometimes speed to quote is speed to cash for dealers. How long did it actually take your team to get up and running and feeling productive in Tinnacity? Was there an integration headache that everybody feared, or was it easier than expected?
We're in year 3. We've been doing this for 2 years. It was part of a major ERP upgrade when we switched to Tinnacity. And I remember 2 years ago on January 1st, and we were converting all our data. The only thing that worked right was Tinnacity. The ERP didn't work right. We couldn't print invoices for a couple of months. But because Tinnacity worked right out of the gate, that it was an easy platform to understand from our technicians, our internal staff, that we actually were able to produce work for our customers on day one. I think it went really well. I think Tinnacity creates a software platform that is technician-centric. It makes a lot of sense to a technician. When we're showing technicians how to do it, they figure it out quickly. A new guy masters the software in the first week.
Would you say your legacy techs were resistant to change, bringing on Tinnacity?
Let's admit it, the technicians are salty guys. They are experts at what they do, so they don't ever trust that the software person is going to know what's in their best interest, or the service manager. I always explain to our technicians, you work on things that are way more complicated than Tinnacity or the previous field service management platform. This is easy and it's necessary. And if we do it well, we actually deliver a better result to our customer. I think the real value of WD Matthews service work is the report that the customer gets. Anybody can come in and fix something, but can we document that so well that you have an understanding of what we did and you can factor that into the business decisions regarding your truck for the future? If we do a PM on your truck, you're getting a very well done document that you should hold and be able to make business decisions about an investment tool for your business. We say that all the time. Now our document is a Tinnacity document, and we think we have created checklists that are sophisticated enough that gives good information to our customers. And then when you throw in the portal, I mean, customers have so much more information to make capital decisions about forklifts and aerial lifts than they ever had in the past.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a true partner to your clients there. You're working together and providing them with more information than I think any other, vendor would be doing. I definitely hear the word partnership there, not just with Tinnacity and WD Matthews, but you and your clients as well. That whole transition there seems to be very transparent.
Obviously, we're forklift experts, but we also know that customers have operational needs that sometimes are in conflict with what's the right decision on the actual repair on the forklift. And so they need as much information to make a well-balanced decision. We know that what we recommend all the time isn't exactly what they're going to do. But if they don't have the entire transparency, what needs to be done to that forklift, they're going to make a bad decision. And we want them to make good decisions so they can save money, so they can buy more forklifts.
At Tinnacity, we like to say, give your techs their evening back. By moving time cards, work orders, pictures to Tinnacity, how much administrative time have you given back to your team? And how has that impacted their day-to-day?
I think we have high morale amongst our technicians at WD Matthews, and considering the last 6 years, that's a pretty bold statement. But we are proud when we hire a technician. One of the things that we tell you is we pay you key in to key out. When you start your van, you're on the clock. And when you get home, you get off the clock. We're going to pay you for every amount of paperwork, cleaning your van, sorting your tools. But we don't want you to waste any time. I want you to, when you get home, take the pack off, be with the family so you can start again. Tinnacity does make that easy. But with the time capture portion of Tinnacity, that's where we've experimented the most, because we have real information about every minute that a technician is investing, and we have created an incentive structure so that the technician is receives some small monetary bonus based on whether they're putting their time in the appropriate places. And that has driven a lot of results. I'd say as every service manager is trying to figure out, how do I take all the hours that I'm paying for and incorporate that into my labor rate so that I'm capturing everything? And let's just admit it, we guess most of the time in order to capture all that wasted time. But now Tinnacity takes out all the guesswork because you have every minute accounted for and you know exactly where it went. With our bonus structure, the way it is, we are actually creating as much gain time as we are as administrative loss time. We've actually baked it all into the labor rate now. So now we can be much more frugal, much more precise when we're charging our customers, and customers always want precision. They don't want to pay for anything extra.
Removing that administrative friction and providing that incentive at the end of a long day probably changes the entire energy of your team.
We give them a report every month, and they can see the metrics that we're measuring, and productivity is one of them. 95% of time is being applied to direct or indirect billable functions.
We know software is only as good as the people behind it. How would you describe your experience working with the Tinnacity support team?
The Tinnacity support team is excellent, almost probably to a fault, because our paired software, our ERP support team, sometimes we have some struggles with. And so in order to get around that, we ask Tinnacity to tell us what's happening, and then we use that information to tell our ERP support team what they need to fix. I imagine that's not the business model that Tinnacity wants. And my favorite story is, in our early going, the first couple of months, I went right on the chat bot and asked the question. And it was Dave Tinnerman that was answering it back. And I was so impressed, not only with that the CEO is right there in the trenches answering technical questions for a chat. I mean, he didn't know it was me. He was just answering the support questions, but he gave an appropriate answer. He coached us in the right area. And even when it's not a technical issue, they help us solve the operational issue around Tinnacity. It's very impressive that Tinnacity does it the way they do it, but they solve every problem. They solve it quickly.
We view ourselves as an extension of your service department. I think hearing what you just said with that human element, including the CEO, it just shows our white glove support that we try to provide. I know with a lot of SaaS companies, that's more like, here's your software, see you later, figure it out. And I think from the beginning, Dave tried to build this for the techs, and he wants to be involved on a day-to-day basis to hear these pain points and improve the overall customer experience.
Everybody at Tinnacity has such a forklift-oriented perspective that it doesn't really matter who's asking the question. They also are going to solve it with you. Seeing Tina at our onboard and training, and a technician asked her a question, and she just asked the question, well, why would you do it that way anyway? She was actually trying to figure out what's the right answer here, not a Tinnacity question, but why operationally was he asking this question? Just that perspective makes things so much easier.
Customers all the time bring up to Tina and Christian and Dave, why don't you do it this way? And we either have an answer or we're like, you know what, that's a good idea. So some of our best ideas have come from the clients themselves. Plenty of dealers still run on whiteboards and paper and are nervous about making the jump to new tech. What advice would you give a service manager who's on the fence about switching to Tinnacity?
You need to have as many tools in your toolbox as you can possibly support in order to get the job done. But we find that the more we put on to Tinnacity, the better results we have. Like any dealership, we measure our first time fix rate. Very proud of it that we've been 80+% for decades. And now I was just reporting to my superiors that we have an 89% first time fix rate. Well, that's because we have better information to evaluate that. And if you're using a whiteboard and paper, you're going to be stuck in that, am I getting my information fast enough to make the appropriate decision? And now with first time fix rate right in Tinnacity, I mean, we run a daily report, we measure it, and we can see, well, yesterday we had a non-first time fix. Why? Was it a part? Was it diagnostics? Was it a support? Did we put the appropriate training into that technician? And then we can make an adjustment to that in real time. If you can't manage in real time, you're not really managing efficiently. I do think Tinnacity is another tool that any service manager can use. It's so simple, and it's going to make you better.
I'd like you to speak on the customer portal a little bit. You guys are using this to give clients on-demand visibility, and I'd love to hear how that self-service access has impacted the way they interact with your team. And honestly, how many of your clients have made the jump to using it?
A lesson that anybody in business has learned in the last few years is communicate with your customers on their level. So if people want paper, we're going to figure out paper. But if you want really advanced 2026 version of what your forklift fleet looks like, here, this is included with the cost of service with Matthews. You can see your entire fleet that we service. You can quickly identify how many trucks you have in operation and which ones are out of operation. You can look at history. You can request service. It is available and easy. The way we've rolled that out is we've QR coded every truck that we touch. It's like a PM sticker. We put the QR code on the truck. They can scan the QR code, immediately see the history and the open work orders. That's helped us with our PM. And then the customer from their perspective can scan the QR code and then go into the portal and request service. It's very functionally easy, whether you're a user or not, but the advanced users can get in there and see a lot of information. Some customers that are managing their whole fleet through the portal, but it is my de facto position when a customer calls me and says, hey, I need an old copy of a work order that you guys did. I'll show them how they can get that themselves. You don't have to waste your time with calling me or emailing me. It's all available to you immediately. And I think that makes the customer really excited because they're not searching for that old work order because they want to, they have to. And you just made it easier on them. It'll always be limited by the customer. I mean, if you have 1 or 2 trucks, maybe you're not a huge portal user, but if you have 130, you probably should be in that portal. In fact, you should probably be calling Matthews for service because you're going to get it all in one place. But requesting that service immediately puts that work order request in front of the dispatcher. It is the fastest way to request service. You can pick up the phone and waste a few minutes, but in 2026, who wants to do that? And immediately you can see that service request. You can see whether it's received. You can see whether we've acted on it. Our dispatcher would usually follow up with an email back to you saying we've received it and this is how we're going to proceed. We're going to schedule it for this day. I'd say in 2026, most managers, operations managers are operating their whole business from their cell phone. You don't want to call anybody. You want to get a ding. Okay, I see the forklift is scheduled for repairs. I get another ding. I can see that my work is completed and this is what they told me. I can send an email back and say, okay, I'd like to approve those repairs or I would like to receive a quote. It's all streamlined from the customer's perspective. It makes it really easy to get service and to make decisions about your service.
And it probably improves a lot of accountability on your team's side as well, knowing whose court the ball is in and who has the next step instead of sitting around waiting on like what's happening next.
Operators aren't always kind to their equipment. As an equipment owner, you want to know, is this a routine failure? Is this something that I could have avoided? Is this something that I should counsel my employees to operate in a different way? That is a 2026 solution to forklift maintenance is how do I track trends? How do I pay my bill? How do I see which forklift is costing me the most money? So maybe that I can take that out of circulation or maybe that forklift is associated with an operator that needs a little bit more training. These are the decisions that businesses need to make because the money is in the margins. You need to be more efficient to make more money. And it's going to be the little things like avoiding repairs and making small operational training decisions that save you more money. One of our customers, large lumber store provider, decentralized, we sell them all their forklifts, but they have their own service team, but they hire us for some service work. They like the QR code so much that we're in a discussion with them where we've actually put the QR code on the inside of the overhead guard so that the operator can just scan it from there instead of getting off the truck and he can report all issues. And we've told them, you don't have to hire us for all of the issues. We're just going to send it to you. You can say yay or nay, whether you want to hire us for that repair, but you're going to get 100% perspective on your operator's issues and you can decide which ones to fix. And honestly, if we just get 10% of those jobs, that's good for us. We're not trying to displace your service team unless you want to. We want to give you options. And so far, so good. They like that because they didn't have a good trouble reporting system. So we just gave it to them. You think they would go to our competitor now when they have all that information at their fingertips?
Just another solution that you're able to provide them. It's great. Let's go back to the beginning of Jim. What was the first job you ever had and how old were you when you started?
I grew up on a small family farm in middle of nowhere, Maine. So I didn't make it very far. I'm not far from where I grew up. There's something unique about growing up on a farm is that you learn how to work really quickly because you don't have a choice. And you learn to be frugal because you don't have a choice. So my first job was obviously working farms, hay and fields, all that stuff. You didn't get paid really anything, but probably something that a lot of people can relate to. I did have a high school job as a dishwasher and cook. And then I joined the Marines and I worked on helicopters in the United States Marine Corps for 6 years. So that's where I started off, kind of a hodgepodge of experience as a child. But I appreciate it now that I'm older. I appreciate the fact that that was my childhood and that's who I am. I would say I didn't like it back then, but I like it now. Probably much like my service history, and any veteran's going to tell you that, like, I'm glad that's over with. I'm very proud of it. Don't really want to do it again.
Yeah, you did it once, it's behind you, but it taught you a lot about hard work. When you actually step away from the business and the office and you're looking to unwind, what do you like to do to relax?
Well, me and my wife have 4 daughters.
Wow.
Yeah, 13, 15, 17, and 25. So relax isn't really something that I do a lot. We boat in the ocean off the coast of Maine. That's what we like to do. And then honestly, just trying to enjoy living in Maine during the summer and bearing with it during the winter. That's what we do for fun.
Being in Maine like your whole life, do you not hate the winter? Is it just part of, life now, 8 months of cold?
See, I love Maine. I grew up here and obviously hated it because that's what every kid hates home. Joined the Marines at the age of 18 and did 6 years in the Marines and saw the world and quickly realized I don't like the world and I wanted to go back to Maine where things are simpler and make a lot more sense. I actually was stationed in Hawaii for most of my time and I would come home during the winter because I just missed the seasons. Gives you a refreshed look when you get to change the seasons every 3 months. So I enjoy it. My wife would argue that's not the case. We should move to a tropical climate, but I like it. We're snow blowing yesterday morning and then you get up and you go to work and that's just what you do. And I enjoy the state of Maine.
Well said. Thank you for your service, by the way.
I was stationed on the Marine base, Kaneohe, working on CH-53 Delta Sea Stallion helicopters. So large cargo helicopters. It's ironic because there's so many similarities to what I did in my youth to what I do now. I operated forklifts and loaded cargo into helicopters and flew them around. I have a different perspective than maybe some of our homegrown mechanics here. It's a good thing to do for yourself and for your country.
Yeah, it sounds like you were destined to work with your hands.
Yes.
So I'm always looking for my next trip. So I have to ask, if you could hop on a plane tomorrow, where is Jim headed? Somewhere you've never been before.
Oh, that's what my wife and I do. We have the 2 spring vacations and long winters in Maine. You want to get away from Maine just for a week. So 1 week is usually traveling with the kids and 1 week is usually her and I getting away from everything. And we pick places on the map and we've done some unique places. We've done Colombia and Peru. We've done a small island off of Puerto Rico, Vieques. We're usually going south where it's warmer, but honestly, I just want the experiences. I think we want to go to Panama next. We ran into some people while we were on vacation that thought Panama was really cool. So we might try that next. But usually south where it's warm. And honestly, it gives you a really cool perspective on American life when you can see non-American life.
Yeah, checking out other cultures definitely helps you appreciate what you have. And then something else, like you might decide to just stay in Panama. Who knows? It could be the coolest place you've ever been.
That would be my wife's preference. Let's stay there.
I just kind of want to open the floor to you for any last words. If there's another success story or anything about your experience with Tinnacity, maybe we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah, I'm not kidding when I say this, but yesterday, operation shut down. A large tractor trailer truck driving on the main strip right outside the office hit 2 telephone poles and knocked out our power and our internet for the entire day. And WD Matthews continued operations. The shop was pretty dark. We pulled some trucks outside and worked on those. But our field operations continued to run. We sent our dispatchers. They went home and worked on their home internet. But operations continued. We didn't have to break out the old multi-part forms and write it all down. No, in fact, our nearly 50 field technicians didn't see a change in their operations at all. They just kept going. And today, we're back in the office, power's on, internet's on, our phones are almost working correctly, and we'll just pick up the scraps and get back to work. And I think that's what customers are looking for. They understand. They don't want to hear, you lost internet, sorry, I can't help you today. If you call WD Matthews, we're going to help you. We're going to give you options, and we're going to get very sympathetic with your plight, and we're going to try to fix it together. In that inconvenient circumstances, you can't plan for when somebody's going to knock out the power poles to your office. But the fact that we didn't miss any operations due to it because Tinnacity worked, we're pretty pretty happy with that, pretty proud of it. And I'm not shy. I throw all kinds of weird ideas at you guys, and honestly, they turn into features. So I'm not going to stop because suddenly they pop up. The video feature, oh, God bless you. I'm so happy to have the video feature. I'll probably be able to shut off one vendor and just consolidate with Tinnacity because I have a video vendor that I currently use, but it's disconnected from everything else that I'm doing. So I'd much rather have it in Tinnacity. In fact, you guys are creating services faster than I can incorporate them. Resource scheduler, that is something we're working on right now. We're using a CRM as a work order processing tool, and we've integrated the scheduler into it. So if somebody schedules something, that it creates reminders so that we don't lose activity, and it gives you such good perspective on what all your technicians are working on. It's really helpful.
Jim, thanks again for joining us. It's clear that WD Matthews is staying ahead by actually embracing the tech available in today's industry rather than sticking with the status quo. You're really showing what's possible when you utilize the full Tinnacity tool belt, not just picking one feature, but using every solution available to sharpen the whole operation. We're looking forward to keeping that momentum going and constantly improving the platform alongside you. To our listeners, if Jim's approach to modernizing his operation actually resonates with you, go check out the standard they're setting over at WD Matthews. If you're ready to trade out the manual guesswork for a digital toolkit that actually works, reach out to us here at Tinnacity to see how we can help you build your own. Until next time, keep your head up, your momentum strong, and stay tenacious. See you on the next episode of Tinnacity Talks.